Yes, it's just more of a sharing of experiences and maybe also of the inadequate training of people in my position as a researcher facing a pandemic. So just a little bit of context. Since the beginning of the COVID pandemic, in the unit of population epidemiology, we have been conducting very large serological surveys that have involved up to 23,000 participants that were recruited over the past 8 months with clinical visits. It is something that is really 10 times what we were used to do pre-pandemics. We were running a small study where we were recruiting around 1,000 participants per year. And so it has really increased our activity. This has also translated into a change in the units that went from 11 full-time equivalents to between 60 and 80 people employed within the unit. The context is also a sudden increase of interest for epidemiology, of course, but also for epidemiologists who are contacted to share experiences. And that also another context issue, as several of the topics we have been addressing within the unit were very sensible, have been very sensible, and some still are. And this has led to several communication issues, I would say, or challenges. First, internal within our unit, which was not used to this size. Then, for the general public, in the general media. Then, on the social media, we also had communication challenges and issues towards communication of our results to the health authorities, but also to the broader scientific community. And then lastly, I will also discuss briefly about the major communication challenge that we had, and this is the communication of the results to the participants. Moving to internal communication, I mean, it's not really the topic here, but it's really, for us, it has been a sort of revolution on all the communication sides. I have to say that even internally, we have been really struggling. This is because of the size of the units, the size of the projects, and the number of people that had to be involved, and the number of cooperations. We were quickly submerged by WhatsApp and emails. It was impossible to deal with, so we had to quickly implement solutions internally. We have been adopting, for example, tools such as Teams or Planner. I have just put some examples here. We had to reorganize the unit into an admin communication channel, a data communication channel, a coordination channel, and then a science channel. We have several different groups where people interact, and then it works also a little bit as a chat for quick communication, and also a place where we store all the documents. We were quickly also submerged with documents and other things that we needed to share and store somewhere. And we also have been building strong links with the HEG and the University of Geneva press and communication offices for a lot of the documents that require communication to the participants, to authorities, and so on. And then something that is that was very particular for a unit of population epidemiology is that we needed, at the end we resumed and we hired a communication person within the unit because of all these challenges that we were addressing internally and externally. Concerning the communication with the general media, also that was really something that increased rather exponentially. Thinking about myself, it went from 2-3 media interactions a year to 4 to 6 requests for media intervention that I have a week, and of which I only accept about 10 to 20%. This has really made clear that I had, and I don't know, I'm talking about researchers in my field in general, but I mean, not being able to, I don't know if it applies to everyone, but for what concerns me, I had really little experience on interacting live, especially on such highly politicized topics. And it's really, we can discuss later, it was really difficult. Sometimes something I had said was misinterpreted. And this has always happened even with my previous research, but the consequences were much smaller when the research was that I was conducting, I would say, was of a little bit more reduced interest to the general public. I've also observed a tendency from journalists, not all, but sometimes to, especially live, to push for extreme opinions, to especially contact me for controversial topics, asking to face other people for debates. And this has also personally brought me to a reflection on what was really my role in that, because in a way, we have the duty to clearly and honestly present the situation. On the other hand, I still had a unit within the cantonal hospital, and although it is not the population epidemiology unit treating the patients, it could have been perceived as some information I had that could a little bit disrupt the trust in the hospital. So this was also a difficult position, and I realized that for some of the research, the hospital was very helpful in implementing this research, but sometimes I realized I could not speak as a researcher because of my position as, in the end, a state employee. Then the social media, also that was another great challenge where I used to have on Twitter's around 400 followers, and I started tweeting myself about the pandemic and different epidemiological concepts, but then also relaying some information I had from colleagues at the beginning of the first wave from Italy, where I am from. And that some of my tweets attracted a lot of attention, and there is one specifically that attracted around 54 millions, that was viewed 54 million times, and that made me like around 15,000 followers on the platform. I had to, over this month, I had to completely change my interactions with this social media, because I quickly realized that what I was tweeting was relayed all over the world, that I was immediately contacted by journalists right after a tweet, and several times it was not myself only, but I was really presented as the head of population epidemiology in the hospital, so it was really complicated, and I started thinking about whether the tweets are really my own, or they are actually perceived as from something that is not an authority, but I still could be perceived as speaking from the state as a functionary, and that's really raised question of where I should draw the line on what I was tweeting. There is a disclaimer that tweets are my own, but I'm not an expert of everything, and on the other hand, as a person, I have opinions on a lot of things, and it really the past few months, let's say, I became much more concerned about what I was tweeting because of the way that I could perceive a reaction to whatever I could write. Finally, there was also the issue and challenge of communication of our results. They were highly weighted results, especially after the first wave. We were one of the first centers in the world to produce a prevalence estimate on a representative sample of the general population. This really attracted a lot of attention from also health authorities, WHO, and several other instances, including the task force, for example, and it raised the question of the communication of these results that I think many researchers in COVID have faced. When should we communicate these results? We could do it immediately as soon as we have a result, but this would mean that they have not been peer reviewed. We could do press releases with enough information and elements for politicians, but that would not be sufficient for the scientific community. We could share in social media with informative threads, or for example on Twitter, but then we would bypass the health authorities, and there was also the issue of presenting aggregate results to a social platform when we hadn't gotten back to the participants yet. And then we also started publishing preprints that allowed to share more details, to inform the scientific community, at the same time to have a document to share to the authorities. But then we realized that by submitting ourselves a preprint, if it was not through the channel of press release of the hospital, for example, of the university, it could have picked up by the media without having come through the normal and formal challenges. So what we have experienced in terms of communication with the scientific community and the health authorities is really the difficulty of controlling or directing the flow of information also from one channel to the other. Then finally, the participants. So overall, the communication after the pandemic has been extremely challenging on all the aspects that I have just mentioned, but I really think that the major challenge that we had experienced is the communication to participants. We needed to transmit the serological results. At the very beginning of the pandemic, we had an embargo. We could not share individual results to the participants because of the overall fear that people would break the lockdown after discovering they were, for example, seropositive. At the beginning, it was the first serological results ever done on this virus, so there was also some uncertainties around the test. And then at the time, there was even more than now, as we know, uncertainty around the antibody protection. So we really didn't want to yield information we were not sure about. Then, apart from these scientific issues related to the public health issues related to the transmission of results, we faced technical challenges of providing more than 20,000 individualized results after having used different tests and with different confirmation strategy. It was very difficult to pass to participants the information that this was a research study. I have been working in a lot of cohorts and population-based studies, and we draw blood, and then the results come eventually. And while never we have faced such a pressure of participants calling, threatening, insulting, writing to the media, writing by phone, writing us letter of threats because they could not get their serological results. It has been really posed a large challenge and a lot of pressure in the team, and then not to mention all things that go around the communication of the result. That is, we had hundreds and thousands of emails and calls about questions on the results itself, because of the fact that nothing was known, not much was known on the meaning of these serological testings. And then we also had, and we still have, a lot of questions on COVID itself. For all these people, for some of them at least, we sort of became their health provider, or at least the part of the hospital they have contact with. So they call us asking whether they should be vaccinated, if they have a headache, if they could, if they need to get tested, or whatever other question they have, and this was really challenging for the team. Then, still with on participants, we faced the issue of having transmitted the results in an aggregate label before having sent individual results. Some participants, just as an example, wrote to a cantonal journal at Université de Genève a letter complaining about this. And then we also just had the need to still keep our participants happy, because this is a longitudinal study, so we had this large collection, but we are following them up over time. So we want them still to be happy and to participate again. And then, for example, other pressures we had is that after the second wave, we really felt that we needed to send the participants the results before the Christmas break. we really, and then there is also this issue of ever-evolving interpretation of results. How we have faced these internal issues with participants. We have created a newsletter, some frequently asked questions documents. Results are now available into a digital platform. We plan the results to participants issue ahead. And then we also created a ticketing system in a CRM platform. We have implemented a call center, and then conducted several trainings of the team members, updated the website, and then we emailed them with press releases. To conclude, I think what we have learned, especially in my unit, is that it would have been nice if we were trained in communication, something that we always say that we don't have time to do, but is really then we realize the importance of this, that there are different fronts of communication, and each had its challenges and where appropriate expertise was needed. In the end, I think one difficulty that I still face is that it is difficult to draw a line between personal opinions and advice as an expert. And then that we could just resume communicating our results, but this implies really resisting day to day to requests, also on important public health matters. And then for the participants, the major challenge really has been conducting a research study on something that participants were, on a result that participants were really waiting for, and we have implemented several tools to try and solve these issues. Thank you for your attention.